Thank you so much for sticking with this incredible Bible study. This week's reading of the story, we are picking right up on page 98 if you have your copy. And we are reading chapter 7, The Battle Begins. This is part D, and we're going to finish this chapter. It is very amazing. Please go back and have a look and see what the other videos are all about regarding all the chapters from the previous Thursdays. Every Thursday I'm dedicated to reading this great novel by Max Lucado and Rodney Frazee based on the Bible. One continuous novel. So let's just pick back up because it's a great story and I just want to keep reading. So thank you for tuning in. Let's pick up. Middle of page 98. So Joshua subdued the whole region, including the hill country, the Negev, the western foothills, and the mountain slopes. Together with all their kings, he left no survivors. He totally destroyed all who breathed, just as the Lord, the God of Israel, had commanded. Joshua subdued them from Kadesh Barnea to Gaza, and from the whole region of Goshen to Gibeon. All these kings had their lands Joshua conquered in one campaign, because the Lord, the God of Israel, fought for Israel. Then Joshua returned with all Israel to camp at Gilgal. When Jabin, king of Hazar, heard of this, he sent word to Jobab, king of Madon, to the kings of Shimron and Aksheph. These are not easy words, I gotta tell you. And to the northern kings who were in the mountains, and in Abarath, south of Kinnereth, in the western foothills, and in Naphoth Dor on the west. I would encourage you, I'm just going to stop here, I would encourage you to sometimes look up some of the words that I'm saying so that you know what we're talking about and where we're talking about them. These are real people, real places. I just may be saying the names wrong or something like that, and I really hope that I'm not. But I'm reading this off the cuff as first. I haven't read it before, so I'm trying to do my best. So please, if I'm not saying them correctly, please give me some grace with that. So we're picking up to the Canaanites in the east and the west, and to the Amorites, Hittites, Perizzites, and Jebusites in the hill country, and to the Hivites below Hermon in the region of Mizpah. They came out with all their troops and a large number of horses and chariots, a huge army, as numerous as the sand on the seashore. All these kings joined forces and made camp together at the waters of Merom to fight against Israel. The Lord said to Joshua, "Do not be afraid of them, because by this time tomorrow I will hand all of them slain over to Israel. You are to hamstring their horses and burn their chariots." So Joshua and his whole army came against them suddenly at the waters of Merom and attacked them. The Lord gave them into the hand of Israel. They defeated them and pursued them all the way to Greater Sidon, to Misrephoth Maim, and to the valley of Mizpah on the east, until no survivors were left. Joshua did to them as the Lord had directed. He hamstrung their horses and burned their chariots. At the time, Joshua turned back and captured Hazar and put its king to the sword. Hazar had been the head of all these kingdoms. Everyone in it they put to the sword. They totally destroyed them, not sparing anyone that breathed, and had burned Hazar itself. Joshua took all these royal cities and their kings and put them to the sword. He totally destroyed them, as Moses, the servant of the Lord, had commanded. Yet Israel did not burn any of the cities built on their mounds, except Hazar, which Joshua burned. The Israelites carried off for themselves all the plunder and livestock of these cities, but all the people they put to the sword until they completely destroyed them, not sparing anyone that breathed. As the Lord commanded his servant Moses, so Moses commanded Joshua, and Joshua did it. He left nothing undone for all that the Lord commanded Moses. Of all that the Lord commanded Moses. So Joshua took the entire land, just as the Lord had directed Moses, and he gave it as an inheritance to Israel according to their tribal divisions. Then the land had rest from war. Wow, that's about time, because that was a lot of war. That's a lot of war. Then it says, then the land had rest from war. It almost feels like we need a rest from hearing about it. That's a lot of war. That's a lot of people. I just think of all the people being killed in this. But it is a plan. It is a plan of the Lord. And it was allowed, and it was done. And it was the plan of the Lord. These ancient cities defeated by Joshua and the Israelites have been forgotten by history. Yet for the Israelites, each name listed represented risk, loss, hardship, and struggle. God's promise to Abraham centuries earlier was coming to pass. A new nation was being formed. Much of the promised land was theirs. Much still remained to be taken. And in the meantime, their leader had some final words of encouragement and challenge. After a long time had passed and the Lord had given Israel rest from all their enemies around them, Joshua, by then a very old man, summoned all Israel, their elders, leaders, judges, and officials, and said to them, I am very old. You yourselves have seen everything the Lord your God has done to all these nations for your sake. It was the Lord your God who fought for you. Remember how I have allotted as an inheritance for your tribes all the land of the nations that remain, the nations I have conquered, between the Jordan and the Mediterranean Sea in the west. The Lord your God himself will push them out for your sake. He will drive them out before you, and you will take possession of their land, as the Lord your God promised. Now I am about to go the way of all the earth. I'm going to reread that. Now I am about to go the way of all the earth. You know with all your heart and soul that no one of all the good promises the Lord your God gave you has failed. Every promise has been fulfilled. Not one has failed. But just as all the good things the Lord your God has promised you have come to you, so he will bring on you all the evil things that he has threatened, until the Lord your God has destroyed you from this good land he has given you, if you violate the covenant of the Lord your God, which he commanded you, to go and serve other gods and bow down to them. The Lord's anger will burn against you, and you will quickly perish from the good land he has given you. Then Joshua assembled all the tribes of Israel at Shechem. He summoned the elders, the leaders, judges, and officials of Israel, and they presented themselves before God. Joshua said to all the people, "This is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. Long ago your ancestors, including Terah, the father of Abraham and Nahor, lived beyond the Euphrates River and worshipped other gods. But I took your father Abraham from the land beyond the Euphrates and led him throughout Canaan and gave him many descendants. I gave him Isaac, and to Isaac I gave Jacob and Esau. I assigned the hill country of Seir to Esau, but Jacob and his family went down to Egypt. Then I sent Moses and Aaron, and I afflicted the Egyptians by what I did there, and I brought you out. When I brought your people out of Egypt, you came to the sea, and the Egyptians pursued them with chariots and horsemen as far as the Red Sea. But they cried to the Lord for help, and he put darkness between you and the Egyptians. He brought the sea over them and covered them. You saw with your own eyes what I did to the Egyptians. Then you lived in the wilderness for a long time. I brought you to the land of the Amorites who lived east of the Jordan. They fought against you, but I gave them into your hands. I destroyed them from before you, and you took possession of their land. When Balak, son of Zippor, the king of Moab, prepared to fight against Israel, he sent for Balaam, son of Beor, to put a curse on you. But I would not listen to Balaam. So he blessed you again and again, and I delivered you out of his hand. When you crossed the Jordan and came to Jericho, the citizens of Jericho fought against you, as did also the Amorites, Perizzites, Canaanites, Hittites, Girgashites, Hivites, and Jebusites. But I gave them into your hands. I sent the hornet ahead of you, which drove them out before you. Also the 2 Amorite kings. You did not do with it with your own sword and bow. So I gave you the land on which you did not toil, the cities you did not build, and live in them, and eat their vineyards and olive groves that you did not plant. Now fear the Lord and serve him with all your faithfulness. Throw away the gods your ancestors worshipped beyond the Euphrates River and in Egypt, and serve the Lord. But if serving the Lord seems undesirable to you, then choose for yourselves this day whom you will serve, whether the gods your ancestors served beyond the Euphrates, or the gods of the Amorites, in whose land you are living. But as for me and my household, we shall serve the Lord." And the people said to Joshua, "We will serve the Lord our God and obey him." On that day Joshua made a covenant for the people, and there at Shechem he reaffirmed for them decrees and laws. And Joshua, And Joshua recorded these things in the book of the law of God. Then he took a large stone and set it up there under the oak near the holy place of the Lord. "See," he said to all people, "this stone will be a witness against us. It has heard all the words the Lord has said to us. It will be a witness against you if you are untrue to your God." Then Joshua dismissed the people, each to their own inheritance. After these things, Joshua, son of Nun, the servant of the Lord, died at the age of 110, and he buried him in the land of his inheritance at Timnath-Serah, in the hill country of Ephraim, north of Mount Gash. Israel served the Lord throughout the lifetime of Joshua and of the elders who outlived him and who had experienced everything the Lord had done for Israel. That ends chapter 7. What a brutal chapter with all the wars, but I love how at the end of this chapter we are reminded of all the way that is how God achieved his plan. Isn't that interesting? And when we read all the things that God had done for the Israelites that way, that's incredible. So that is the end of chapter 7. Now at the back of this incredible book on page 476, the questions for the battle begins. These are some questions to ponder about all about the whole chapter that we just read. Question number 1, how could Joshua be strong and courageous in such intimidating situations? I'm so glad that that's one of the questions. I so want to talk about that. I really want to talk about that. So I'm glad that's one of the questions. What do you learn about God from the story of the salvation of Rahab the prostitute? Another great question. Number 3, what do the string of amazing battle victories the people experienced as they entered the land reveal about who is really in charge of history? That's really what we were just reading. Depending on whose version you listen to would decide how you want to say history went. But when you read it with God's account, well, this is actually what I did, this is what I did, this is what I did, that's a different account of history, right? Amazing. Number 4, why did God order the Israelites to go to war against others? How was this war justified? Great question. Number 5, how did Joshua challenge the people in his final speech? Oh, very good. Might have to go back and listen to that. Number 6, why do you think God lavished blessings on Joshua and all the Israelites who, like Joshua, trusted God? Let me just read that again. Why do you think God lavished blessings on Joshua and all the Israelites who, like Joshua, trusted God? That's a great question. And Ruby's laying here, so if you hear a couple grunts and groans and things like that, Ruby's just moving around and listening to what we're talking about. Question number 7. What practical steps can you take to gain a deeper faith in God? I like how we ask that question. How can we? And first of all, though, I do want to thank you very much for one of the very practical steps we are all taking is doing this Bible study. This is a practical step to gain a deeper relationship and a deeper understanding of God and our relationship with God and His Word and what does it mean and what does it say in here. And how is this a loving God with all this war going on? That's what we're going to be talking about. So please tune in next Thursday when we go over these questions and answers for chapter 7. But then we're going to start to read chapter 8, and it is called A Few Good Men and Women. Okay, so we'll get started on that next Thursday. I do hope that you have a great week. I hope that you're encouraged in all this 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 type of world that we live in right now. Let's stay focused on this and get through every day. Have a great week. Bye now.